Welcome back to the second half of today's lecture. We're going to pick it up with population growth and population growth rates. So, population growth, PGR, population growth rate, is the uh, increase or sometimes decrease of the number of a population and the rate at which it grows or declines in a certain area. And it has a few factors that affect it. The first is emigration, which is the number of individuals or organisms moving away from a certain area during a certain time period. So Emmy is an award you win and you have to go get it. Emigration. Trying to help you remember here. And then immigration, I migration. I want to go to a new place, and so I'm going to go there. So I migration is the number of individuals that move into a new area. Okay, so emigration, you're leaving, immigration, you're going to. And that affects the growth rate, right? Because if your immigration is greater than your emigration, your population's growing. If your emigration is greater than your immigration, your population will be declining. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, there are some different types of growth patterns that happen in animal populations. And the first is exponential growth, which occurs when um, the growth rate is happening at the fastest it possibly can. And it is not limited by the population size. And so you might think of this as what happens when you have a species move into a new area and there's no competition and there's basically enough resources so that every female has the maximum number of offspring all the time. Okay, and so all population growth grow exponentially to begin with, right? Initially, until they reach what's called the limit, until they reach limiting factors, or what's called carrying capacity. Now, logistic growth happens or begins to occur when you approach the carrying capacity of an environment. And so you start with an exponential growth, it goes almost straight up, and then you either have population collapse where organisms die off, and that happens in things like flies or insects that grow very rapidly when there's like a dead carcass and they're laying a bunch of eggs, they're having a lot of offspring, and then all of a sudden that carcass is gone and there's nothing for them to feed off of anymore. And so their population just really declines until they find a new dead body or pile of poo to start laying their eggs in, and then they experience exponential growth again. Logistic growth tends to begin exponentially and then curves off as it reaches the confluence or the combining of limiting factors called carrying capacity. Oh, good. And here's the term carrying capacity. And that's about the maximum number of a population that the environment can support. And it's a combination of a bunch of different things. It's the number of predators in the environment, the access to water, how many foodstuffs or access to food resources there are. All of these kind of things work together. So carrying capacity is not actually a single thing. It is a combination of things that limit the number of a population that can exist in a certain place at a certain time. Now, reproductive patterns in insects, there's a couple, because not every organism reproduces in the same way at the same time, right? Some reproduce by forming seeds in plants, for example. Some reproduce by having two organisms mate, the egg and the sperm come together, and so they have sexual reproduction. And some reproduce by what's called binary fission, like bacteria, which just divide and divide and divide after they reach a certain size. So different organisms have different reproductive patterns. Now, our strategy patterns of reproduction produce as many offspring as possible in as short a period of time as they are able to do it, to take advantage of the available resources in the environment. These, again, have that exponential growth, but then a population collapse. Okay. And then K strategists tend to reproduce few offspring and invest more care to make sure that the offspring are more likely to succeed, survive, and produce offspring of their own. And so humans would fall into a K strategy type of organism. Your random fly would be an R strategy organism. So, back to our focus question: what are characteristics of populations and how are they determined? Well, hopefully, I've given you some great terminology and some tools to answer this question and to figure out how these characteristics are determined. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.